Hello. Looking today at a very short bite on what is a SMART objective. We hear this quite a lot talked about, SMART objectives, and they're used not only in education and in teaching and by school teachers and trainers alike, but also used very much in a longer and wider aspect of business. They're really quite useful little things when you understand them. I'm going to keep this one quite short to try and explain this. SMART is an acronym, I suppose, and each one of the letters stands for something, and the SMART is S for specific, sometimes known as simple, sensible, or significant. Okay, the M is for measurable, or could be meaningful or motivating. The A is achievable, often used as agreed or attainable. The R is realistic, relevant, and reasonable. And then the time is for time bound, time constrained, time realistic, and things like this, etc. So let me go back to the very first one, specific. When you're setting a goal for your pupil today, the goal might be junctions or whatever. We need to look at it first of all. So, for example, today we're going to look at junctions. First of all, is that specific enough? Possibly and probably for this session, yeah. So today we might be looking at junctions. So it is very specific. Very often you get in the car, you see trainers, they're just generally driving around. There's no specific subject for today. So today we might look at junctions, or by the end of the day we might be able to reverse into a bay in a car park, or maybe by the end of the session we'll have a greater understanding or more confidence of roundabouts. So yes, we've made a very specific goal on that one. So the M, measurable. Is it measurable? Well, yes, it should be. If we take our example of junctions, by the end of today, if the person can accomplish junctions, you should be able to measure it by the amount of confidence and things there. Scaling's a very good tool for this, etc. At the beginning, you could ask them, so today, how confident do you feel about junctions? And they might give you a 2 or a 3. By the end of the session, you could ask them, and how confident do you feel now? 1 being not confident at all, and 10 being completely competent. And as long as they've moved up the scale, then learning has taken place. And also, of course, the transfer of the responsibility. So great tool is scaling. But there's nothing wrong with asking, how do you feel now? How do you feel about roundabouts today? This often comes in with people, particularly things like roundabouts, where they're absolutely scared of roundabouts. They're frightened. So how frightened are you? How do you feel? So don't be scared to ask those sorts of questions. Achievable. Is the goal achievable? And this is a mixture of things, really. First of all, does it fit in with the learning they've got today so far? Let me give you an example. A learner early on in their tuition, let's say second or third lesson, announces to you that they would like to do their manoeuvres because all their friends have been doing manoeuvres, so they would like to do manoeuvres. However, you know that so far today their clutch work is not very good, and maybe they're a little bit weak on observations and things. So as the professional here, you've got to ask yourself, is that achievable? Is that really what we need to do today? And you may need to steer them towards other skills first, etc. There is other things. For example, we've talked about junctions earlier. You may have a learner who you just think, well, junctions for them particularly is not specific enough. They may struggle. So you could break the junctions down into emerging or approaching. So today we will learn how to emerge from junctions, or today we will learn how to approach from junctions. That could even be broken down even greater to today we will learn how to approach a junction turning left. Today we will learn how to approach a junction turning right. Today we will learn how to reverse up to the corner for the point of turn rather than the entire reverse left or reverse right. So you can break them down depending on your learners. And this is where you start looking at things like, is that really achievable for this learner? And again, you can ask them, do they feel it is going to be realistic? Do they feel it's going to be achievable? The R for realistic is the goal relevant to the learning? So is it part of the subject matter? Is it really relevant for what they're learning today? Is it at the right time? And is it worthwhile? And the time for us really is the allocation of time. Can you fit this into a 20, 30-minute time slot, really? I've seen instructors who have done a 2-hour lesson and they've spent the entire 2 hours just reversing around a corner. If your learner does not learn something in the first 20 or 30 minutes, stop. There is no point in banging on for another hour or 2 hours trying to teach them to do it. Keep them at the 20, 30 minutes. What they've achieved in that time that's what you take as a score. You can always come back, etc. Change the subject, do something completely different. Typically in a lesson, I might introduce a new subject at the beginning and then move on to maybe something recapping a previous lesson. And then today I might look at saying, well, now we can do a bit of independent driving. So you're making the task demands easier as a lesson moves on. So there we have it. That's the SMART objectives, etc. We should be using them in all our lessons when we set objectives. This is going to become very relevant in the next section because I'm using these to expand on something called the GROW model, which is a model we use for coaching. And as I got into this, I realized that, as I looked at the GROW model, I really need to explain the SMART objectives first. There we go. That's it. Happy teaching. Thank you. Bye for now.